Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. My name's Anthony and I'll be taking us through the 2025 Sendible's social media must-have resources, starting here in just a second. We are scheduled to start here at 9 o'clock, but I know sometimes people can be running a little bit late, so we're just going to give everyone just a few minutes to kind of trickle in. While we wait for them, I have just a couple icebreakers I want to run by everybody just to kind of get the blood flowing, get the engagements going. So the first one I would like us to take part in is I'm going to actually publish a poll. And all I'm doing here is just asking us who your favorite social media network is. So you should see a poll pop up here in just a second. Okay. 1 second. Okay, so you should see a poll pop up on your screen. So if you could just go ahead and fill in which of the social media networks on here is kind of your favorite social media site. This is really just an icebreaker for us while we kind of wait for some people to trickle in. On here we have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, X, LinkedIn, Google My Business, Threads, and Blue Sky. So you should see that on your screen if you want to just go ahead and submit a vote. And while we wait for people to submit their votes, another thing I would like everyone to do is just go over to the chat. The chat's where you'll be able to ask questions during the call. So just to get everyone familiar with the chat, if you could just type in kind of where you're calling in from. That way, maybe if there's anyone that's in your neighborhood or anything, you can kind of do some networking. But again, just to get everyone kind of familiar with the functionality here. Awesome. Hey, thanks, Christine, for participating. I see you're coming from Vermont. I see Kara's typing. I'll go ahead and type my response as well. So I'm over in Tacoma, Washington. So if there's anyone in the Pacific Northwest ever wants to connect, I'm always up for a beer or a round of golf. I'd love to talk social media or just talk in general. Awesome. Kara, thanks for calling in from Michigan. I see John's typing here in St. Louis. Awesome. That's very cool. And then, okay, so we're a few minutes past, so I think we can probably go ahead and get started. If people are still trickling in, there's a poll you can fill out. We're also having people just get familiar with the chat to kind of type in where they're from. Victoria from Victoria, that's awesome. I love Victoria. You're kind of right up the coast from us. It's always a fun trip from Seattle to Victoria. Okay, well, feel free to keep typing, and I'll go ahead and share my screen and we can kind of dive in a little bit. 1 second. Okay, so we should be able to see my screen now. Amazing. Well, hey, thank you to everyone that's participated so far. Feel free to ask questions as we go. There will be a Q&A section at the end. And there will also be my contact information. So if anyone has any questions or wants to learn a little bit more about Sendible or just the resources we cover here in general, one of the best parts about Sendible is our people team. So you'll be able to connect with myself or one of our team members and kind of go over your particular use case in a little bit more detail. So without any further ado, today's subject is going to be 2025's must-have social media management resources. The focus of today's call is going to be mostly on that agency reseller side. A lot of these resources are going to revolve kind of around that particular workflow. That said, if you're in a different space, if maybe you're a government agency, a multi-location business, an educational facility, something like that, we do have some great webinars on a similar topic coming for you later this quarter. This webinar should still have some bits of nuggets that are still relevant to you, but it is going to be mostly focused on kind of how we can help the agency customers and the reseller customers kind of kickstart their prospecting, kickstart their social media strategy. So just a brief agenda. We'll go over a quick intro to Sendible. If you've been familiar with Sendible in the past, there probably shouldn't be too much new information there. Once we go over that, we'll do a quick prospecting overview and just kind of cover how we've seen our successful clients grow. Then we'll cover some resources like guides, templates, and our buyer's guide. And at the very end, we'll do a quick Q&A. So as many of you may know at this point, I've introduced myself a few times. My name is Anthony. I am the head of sales here at Sendible. I've been with Sendible for a little over 2 years now, but before I was with Sendible, I was actually with one of our sister companies, also working with white labelers and agencies called GatherUp. Similar similar concept. They were a review management company that worked with white labelers. Sendible obviously is a social media management company that works with white labelers. So I have a lot of experience kind of helping agencies start their marketing journey and grow their business from 1 to 100 or 100 to 1,000. I've kind of seen all sorts of different setups and agency scaling models. Awesome. Hey, thanks, Rita, for mentioning that you're from New York. I love that we're still getting engagement there. And then on the Sendible side, so for those of you that aren't familiar with Sendible, we were actually founded in 2009. So that makes us one of the more established players in the social media management space. Back in 2009, there was just a handful of companies that had partnerships with the social media networks, and we were one of the few. So we're kind of a pioneer in the space. We're very established. We've continued to grow and develop. Last year, we came out with a Threads integration or a TikTok integration. We are just about to release Threads here in the next couple of weeks in Blue Sky. As far as customers that use us, we have over 56,000 customers or 5,600 customers that use us. And many of those customers are actually agencies and resellers. So while those are the actual accounts that we have, many of those accounts are managing anywhere from a handful of additional businesses to sometimes up to 100, 200 different businesses. And we have a very large global presence. We're represented in over 50 countries across our customer base, with most of our team actually being based in the UK and United States. So now that we have a little bit of a background on who I am, who Sendible is, let's get into the meat of it, what we're here to learn about. So the first thing I want to talk to everybody about is the prospecting, how we've seen our customers go out and get new clients, the different types of prospecting you can do, and just really why this is such an important part of growing your social media management service. So first thing I want to cover, just so that we don't forget anything, is just the resources that Sendible makes available to you. We'll go over each of these in a little bit more detail as we go through the presentation, but just so you can have a quick checklist of what we're really going to cover today. So as far as resources Sendible makes available to our agencies on top of our amazing customer service, we offer guides, templates, and checklists, just kind of help you get the kind of standard operating procedures off the ground. We also provide a white label. I realize not everyone will understand what a white label means. That essentially means you can rebrand Sendible. So if you see this image over here where it says my agency, that's kind of just an image of what could happen on your dashboard. So instead of saying Sendible or having any Sendible logo, we offer a service where you can actually completely rebrand Sendible under your brand name. And then last but not least, for folks that are offering a little bit more of a do-it-yourself or a self-service model, we also offer free trials, which are a great way to kind of go out and give people a taste of the service you're offering before they can fully commit. So again, I'll go over each of these in a little bit more detail. And if you have any questions on these at the end, I'd be happy to connect and kind of go over any of these particular resources or use cases in more detail. So to get started on prospecting, just a couple best practices I wanted to cover. So if you've been in sales or done anything sales related ever, you'll know how important prospecting is. It really is a numbers game. It really is not something you can take a day off from. And it's also a little bit like farming, where you might not see the actual results today. You might do a lot of work today on the prospecting side, and those results won't kind of grow and bear fruit until 2, 3, 6 months down the line. But it's so important that you have a consistent, scalable model for prospecting to ensure that you're kind of meeting your business goals. So as far as best practices go, as I've outlined a few of them here, the first one, which I'll cover in a little bit more detail in just a second, is determine your type of service. So what I mean by this is, are you planning on offering a fully managed service where you're doing everything for the client? If you're currently selling to clients, what you might think of here is these are really for those clients that are too busy to do social media. And that's really why they're hiring you, right? Like maybe they're a plumber or a pizzeria. They're really good at what they do, but social media is not their forte. And that's specifically why they're looking to hire somebody. So if that's the type of service you're looking to offer, we'll go into a little bit more detail in a second. But the other type of service you may offer is a do-it-yourself service. So this is where you're maybe managing more clients as far as the volume go, but those clients are doing a lot of the work themselves. You're providing them with like a dashboard or some resources to really self-serve. And these are the ones that are maybe a little bit more budget conscious. Maybe they have an in-house team and you're looking to provide them the service to kind of help make the most out of those resources that they already have in their back pocket. So once you determine the type of service you want to offer, the next thing that is generally advised is to pick your niche. And you can pick more than one, but it's really important that you pick a niche because it allows you to kind of place yourself as an expert in that space. And your niche or your vertical can really be anything. It can be something like local small businesses. So for example, I live in a small town called University Place. Who else knows University Place better than someone that lives here, right? So maybe my niche would be working with small businesses in my community. Alternatively, maybe I have a background in law or dentistry or something like that. I know that industry very well. That would be a good kind of vertical for me to kind of focus on because I'm already an expert. I already know what their pain points are. I can really hone in on that and kind of scale that practice. And then once you've established the niche, the hard part really starts where you'll need to build a pipeline. So this is where we'll get into a little bit. This is where we'll get into a little bit on the actual strategies and practices you can take. So whether you're taking a paid ads approach, lead magnets, or using more of a networking approach with word of mouth, they all have benefits and downsides. And depending on kind of your service type and your niche, it might help determine what type of prospecting and pipeline building you choose to end up pursuing. And then the last, but definitely not least, is you want to be able to present yourself as an expert. So you're going out to these businesses, offering your services to them. And what's going to make them interested in your services more than anything is if you can present yourself in a way where they see you as a subject matter expert on social media, where you maybe know more about social media or how to help their social media than they do. So we have a couple of resources, like I've mentioned already, with like our white label, some audits that can really help you when you're talking to prospects for the first time, kind of show up in a way where they're very impressed and willing to kind of listen to any advice or consulting that you're willing to do. So if you have any questions on the best practices, feel free to leave them in the chat. I'm going to go through each of these in a little bit more detail right now, but we can definitely circle back. And if there's any questions, I'll do my best to kind of address them as we go. So I mentioned this a little bit on the last slide, but what's the difference between a managed service and a do-it-yourself service? So on the managed service, at a high level, you're really doing everything for that client. You're creating and scheduling content. You're often tracking analytics so that you can help them optimize for the next kind of term period that you're looking at. You may even manage comments or messages or things that are a little bit more on the engagement side for that client. And then you also provide regular check-ins so that you can kind of keep that client up to date. That's really what they're hiring you for a lot of the time, is that you can kind of just give them a check-in, let them know it's good, bad, or indifferent, and then consult with them on how we might want to adjust moving forward. On the do-it-yourself side, it's really what you'll be doing is providing your clients with a dashboard. You can provide them with some services on top of that, like maybe some content that they can use, but for the most part on the do-it-yourself side, the clients will be able to log in to their own dashboard, have access to training material, and a client is responsible for using Sendible and managing all of their content themselves. And there's benefits and downsides to each of these services. So on the managed service side, what this allows you to do is build trust and authority with your client and open up opportunities to offer additional services. So a lot of times what agencies that are offering managed services will do is they won't just do the social media. They may also do websites, SEO, other marketing services, and social media is a great either add-on to that additional service or a good foot in the door where you can provide value quickly to that client and allow you to build a relationship so that you can upsell them on your other marketing services. Managed services is also very in demand. As we've mentioned, especially if you're working with small businesses, this is where I see this a lot. They just frankly do not have time or resources to manage social media on their own. So if you can come in with a compelling offer for them, kind of, again, establish yourself as that expert or the kind of source of truth for their social media, you will find a lot of businesses are actually very much in need of how they can get their presence online to grow. And then definitely last but not least, you can charge quite a bit more for managed services. So I have another presentation, which I'm happy to share with you one-on-one if you'd like, but the managed service side, you can range from a couple $100s a month to even a couple thousand, depending on the size of your client, the amount of content you're producing, and really what you're offering them as far as value. And then on the con side, of course, with everything that has pros, there will be some downsides. The first one is it's going to require more time and resources per client. If you are creating content for them and you're creating quality content, that will take a little bit of time for you to make sure you're doing that right by that client. And then it's also difficult to scale without scaling a team. If you're doing all the content creation for your client, there's only so many hours in a day that you'll be able to dedicate per client. So that will really limit the amount that you can bring on as far as client numbers, unless you start figuring out how to scale your team and operating procedures. So that's the managed service. And then on the do-it-yourself services, as far as pros goes, is it's generally less upfront and creative work on the agency side. You're not doing any ads or creative for the client. You're not doing any reporting for them. You're really just setting up a white label dashboard, building funnels, and then allowing the clients to self-serve them. And because of this, you're able to handle more clients with less time and resources. So a lot of the agencies that are offering a do-it-yourself services have slightly smaller teams than the managed service, just because they can kind of do more and they're able to manage more of those clients since the clients are doing so much of the work themselves. Another pro is that Sendible can help the do-it-yourself service because we have free trials to help kind of automate that lead magnet and onboarding process, which I'll cover in a little bit more detail in a little bit. And then on the con side, generally because you're not doing as much work for the client, providing as much value, the amount that you're going to be bringing in or the average account value for a client is going to be a little bit lower than you would see on the managed service side. Additionally, it's also difficult to prevent churn on the managed or the do-it-yourself side, just because you don't have that relationship as much. You're not doing as many check-ins. You're not quite as aware as you would be on the managed service side on your client's satisfaction. So you do tend to see more churn on the do-it-yourself. And then finally, there is more competition on the do-it-yourself space. There's a lot of platforms that are not white labeled that offer the service as well, that you'll need to make sure you're positioning yourself well in order to compete against them effectively. Cool. So once you've established what sort of service offering you want, the next thing you want to do is establish a niche. And the reason you want to do this, there's really 3 reasons I pointed out. The first one is that it allows you to predict customer expectations. So again, if I'm working with local businesses and I know that the economy is a little bit tough because maybe a plant in town just closed down or something's happening, I'm going to be aware of some of those pain points and be able to position my pitch in a way where I can either help with some of those pain points or maybe even avoid them altogether. Same thing if you're working in an industry. If you work with dental offices, you'll know that they have like strict patient data protections, right? So you'll know how you can make sure that those worries are kind of put to bed by becoming an expert in that particular field. It also allows you to establish and reuse workflows. So once you kind of have an established workflow with like a local business, for example, or a specific industry, a lot of times what you've set up for that first client, those workflows will also work for your other clients. So you can essentially copy and paste those into your next client as you continue to scale. And then the final one is going to be scalability and networking. So because you're working in a particular field, a particular industry or vertical, again, you're going to have those workflows which allow you to kind of do more with less time, and you'll be able to network a little bit more, right? Maybe the lawyer has a buddy in a different city that might also need your service, and they're very impressed with the service you've offered the first client. Going back to the local business model, right? Maybe the business next door is also interested in using they've seen all of the traffic you've driven to the first client. They're interested in getting that ability themselves. So establishing a niche kind of helps you just grow quicker as well as find more clients in that kind of space. Awesome. So once we have the service kind of model set up, we have our niche established. The next thing we'll need to do is build a pipeline. And there's really 2 high-level strategies for building a pipeline. One is going to be a paid strategy with things like PPC ads and lead magnets. And another one is going to be networking and word of mouth. So as far as pros and cons on the PPC ads and lead managements, these are very effective for scaling quickly. And they can be targeted at specific audience, which helps you kind of scale those quickly, right? If you have specific keywords, people looking for social media management, anytime they search for those, you can pop up. That's going to help you kind of amplify the number of prospects and customers you're speaking with. It also helps create brand awareness, right? Being able to pop up on people's social feeds or in their searches, even if they're not necessarily looking for you right now, it creates that brand and that name awareness so that when they do eventually end up looking for a service that you're offering, they can say, oh, I've seen, agency XYZ before. And it, creates that legitimacy and that expectation that you know what you're talking about. You also have the ability to reach multiple prospects at once when using ads because it's such a automated process. You can get in front of potentially thousands of people at once, and it's mostly automated. So while it will take a little bit of setup to begin with, and you will need to continue to kind of optimize it, it is mostly set and forget, especially if it's working for you. Now on the con side, as I'm sure you all know, if you've dabbled in ads before, it can be expensive. The more effective the ads or the more competition there are in the space, the more expensive it can be. So that is something you'll want to keep in mind. There's also some potential for low quality prospects if you do not have your PPC and kind of funnel completely optimized for your particular target audience. And then the last one is that you'll want to constantly optimize it to make it sure it's as effective as possible. Not all ad campaigns are created equal. So going in and, either on a monthly basis or a weekly basis, kind of seeing what's working and what's not working and making game time decisions to adjust that is really how you can make the most out of any ad or lead magnet strategy. And then on the networking and word of mouth, this is what we'll see mostly for those agencies or those resellers that are working kind of in their local community. It's very affordable, right? Since you're working and reaching out to people you either know or people that you have some sort of connection with. On the financial side, it's virtually free. What it really will cost is your time. It also allows you to establish rapport and trust. So if you're actually speaking to people face-to-face, they're not just coming to you through an ad, you get to sell not only the services, but yourself a little bit, right? And a lot of times when you're working with some of these more local businesses, that goes a long way. They want to know that they're working with somebody that understands them, understands their community. And by actually talking to people face-to-face, you're able to kind of build that rapport. And then the final one is it allows you to focus on only quality prospects. So because you're the one or your team's the one physically reaching out and doing this networking, you can kind of pick and choose who you want to focus on and helps you avoid any of the tire kickers or maybe people that aren't quite a good fit for the services that you offer. Now, of course, it is time intensive. So on the con side, it will take you a little bit more time. There's also limited brand awareness. So you'll have to do a little bit more work as far as getting your name out there. You're not going to have as many people coming and maybe seeing you online and being like, oh, I know who agency XYZ is. They will, you'll need to lean a little bit more on kind of that face-to-face interaction. And then finally, it generally must be done one prospect at a time. There are some ways that you can kind of automate networking, but in order to make sure it's as quality and authentic as possible, you'll want to make sure you're doing your time and each prospect is getting its own dedicated attention. Cool. So if we have any questions on the prospecting side, please let me know. I'm also happy to kind of go over in a little bit more detail on a call directly of what we've seen our agencies do that may work. That's aligned a little bit more with your specific use case or vertical. But the last thing I want to cover before we kind of go into some resources that Sendible offers is how to present yourself as an expert. So going back to that kind of first slide I shared, presenting yourself as an expert is so important because if these people are looking for your service and they don't think you know what you're talking about, it's going to be a lot harder for you to sell that service to them. They want to know that you are the, again, source of knowledge, the source of truth. You know what you're talking about. And there's a few ways that you can get there if you are not already feeling like you're an expert in this space. The first option we have is to keep up with social media trends and best practices. So I'm not going to cover this too much because I think it's a little bit self-explanatory, but Sendible has a lot of resources on this. We just came out with the 2025 Trends Report, and we do update our blog and marketing as new features and platforms come out so that you can kind of stay on top of how people are using them, what we're seeing going on with these different social media networks. The next way you can present yourself as an expert is maintaining brand consistency. So when you're reaching out to clients, whether it's via email, having them look at reports, you don't want them seeing a bunch of different tools or a bunch of different brands. You want it to all be kind of coming from your brand so that when they see these analytics, they see these reports, these approvals, it looks like it's coming from an established business that has, established workflows and is in control of all of the data that they're bringing to that client. And then finally, you want to make sure you have the right tools and resources to make sure you can accomplish the job that you're selling to this client. So Again, I'm not going to cover too much more on the keep up with trends, but if you have any more questions on that, I'll be sure to send over some resources on that after this call. But diving in on how you can maintain brand consistency, we have a couple tools at Sendible that can help with that. So the first one we offer is a white label calendar in our reports. What you're looking at here is just a really rough screenshot of what a white label dashboard might look like for you. So if you've used Sendible in the past, you will recognize that the color scheme here is a little bit different than our kind of standard dashboard. So we've changed the color scheme for this agency, and we've also added this agency's logo here. This is completely customizable for your business. So if you have a specific color scheme, logo that you need to work on, we can help you make this dashboard kind of look just like the rest of your online presence. Once this is set up, we also have the ability to send approvals to clients. So when clients are getting approval emails, they will be coming from your brand. They can also log into the task section down there at the very bottom on the left-hand side, and they'll be able to engage with you from a white label dashboard. And then any reports or notifications they receive will also be white labeled under your brand. So all communications, instead of coming to send to your client from Sendible or another third-party source, you can have them all come directly from your company. And then on the do-it-yourself side, we also offer white label free trials. So I mentioned these a couple times up top, but what the white label free trials allow you to do is essentially set up a link on your website or a landing page where you can drive prospects to and allow them to sign up for Sendible themselves so they can kick the tires on it themselves. This is typically used by our self-service clients just because if someone's signing up for a trial, they're generally going to be doing at least a little bit of the work themselves. So when they sign up for a trial, that client will have a dedicated account, they'll have a dedicated calendar with just their profiles, just their reports, and they won't have access to any other clients unless that's something you want to give them access to. They'll have a full-fledged access. They'll have access to everything from scheduling to AI Assist. You can also create content libraries for them in there. We'll have a Canva integration, and then they'll also be able to run and build their own reports within your dashboard. And again, this is so important because if you are offering a do-it-yourself service, you don't want to be sending people to, Sendible in order to have them sign up, under Sendible's branding. You want them, if you're offering a do-it-yourself service, to look like it's a service that your team has designed and offered. Cool. If you have any questions on white labeling, again, please feel free to let me know. But the last thing I want to cover with us before we go into Q&A is just some of the resources Sendible makes available. So if you've been on our website at all, you may have seen our resources section under the dashboard. This is where you'll find things like our audits, checklists, and guides. So we have everything from onboarding guides to audits for each of the individual social media networks. So if you're maybe not familiar with TikTok, that's a great place to start to be like, okay, what would I look for when I'm looking to optimize my client's TikTok? This is also where we keep our trends reports. So keep an eye on this section if you're looking to keep up with any of the trends as they develop over this next year. We also have proposal templates. So if you need something to kind of get in front of customers like a pitch deck or proposal templates, those are also included. And then we also have strategy guides that break down all of the different ways that agencies may be able to kind of get in front and grow their social media offer. In addition to our free social media resources, we also have RFPs and checklists that you can use. So if you're not familiar with what an RFP is, it's essentially a request for proposal. It's a tool that you can use to send to a lot of different companies to get their feedback and make sure that they are offering the service that you're looking for. What we'll see our agents or our potential prospects use with our RFP is if they're just getting started in the kind of search for a social media tool, and they're not familiar with the space, this RFP is a great resource for them to kind of go look at Sendible, make sure Sendible does everything they're looking to do, but also look at other tools and make sure if they're maybe looking at a tool that's outside of Sendible, that tool also is kind of up to snuff and has all the features and resources that they may need. And in addition to that, we also have a platform checklist so that you can ensure that each platform that you're looking at has those features that you're looking for. That's a really good tool if you're maybe a manager that's sending an intern or somebody that you manage out to look. You can say, hey, I've looked at this checklist. These are the features that are important for me. So when you're out there looking at other tools, you can use this to kind of make sure that they are in line with what we're looking for. And then last, but definitely not least, we also offer a buyer's guide. So after this call, everybody that's registered for the event will receive a copy of this. It's a very in-depth breakdown of what Sendible has to offer, and it's a great tool if you are somebody that needs to get stakeholders buy-in on Sendible. It helps you align with teams on what the ideal strategies and goals are. We also include a breakdown of all our features and the top social media networks in there. And then the most important thing, which we haven't really covered too much here, is it has an introduction to our industry-leading customer success team. So if you're using Sendible right now, you probably already know this, but our customer success team is by far the best in the industry. We have a ton of experience on our team. We really roll out the red carpet for each of our customers. And when you onboard to one of our white label plans, you have a dedicated contact here. So you'll receive training right up front, obviously, but you will also receive access to that contact. Anytime you onboard a new team member, we release a new feature, you'll be able to reach out to them anytime with any concerns, and we can address them with you from that same representative. So that's all explained in the buyer's guide in more detail. And again, we'll send this over to you so you can review this after the call as well. Awesome. And I had this slated for about 45 minutes. So the last 15 minutes, I was going to do a Q&A. If there's any questions on offering Sendible or using Sendible with clients or just Sendible in general, this is a great time to kind of ask. I'll give people a few minutes to go ahead and fill out their questions. And if you don't have any questions, thank you so much for joining us. Be on the lookout for this presentation. And if you would like to reach out to me directly, you can reach out to me at Anthony@Sendible or my team at sales@sendible.com. Cool. So we'll give everyone just a few minutes. There's also a question option down on the, if you are joining us from the webinar and not from a live stream, there's also a question option in the room that you can use if that's something you would like. Okay, I got one question that just actually came in via, it's not on the webinar room, but it's through one of our other live streams. So that Donna was asking, do agencies ever offer multiple different types of services? So that's actually a great question, Donna. So let me exit off of this and go back to my slide kind of highlighting the different service types. So what I often will say is that this is more or less a spectrum. So a lot of our agencies will end up on one side of the spectrum or another, but because it's a spectrum, you kind of will always fall somewhere along the spectrum. So on one side, you have a fully managed service where you do everything for the client. And on the other side, you have just the clients doing it for themselves. And what a lot of our agencies will do is they'll meet somewhere in the middle. They'll either offer tiers where they're offering, a very expensive tier where they do everything for a client, a middle tier, maybe where the client's a little bit involved, and then a very affordable tier where the client basically does everything themselves. So you are able to kind of mix and match these service models depending, of course, on your industry, your clientele, and really just the resources and time that you have to commit to each of your different clients. So that was a great question, Donna. I'm happy to connect and answer any other questions one-on-one. I'll send you an email after this. Okay, and then we got another question. Okay, and then John on the webinar asked, perhaps a little off topic, but do you see any benefit of staying on X from an SEO standpoint these days? Or is it worth migrating to alternatives like Blue Sky and Threads? That is a really, really good question, John. I'm not a fortune teller, to be honest. I mean, I think we all can see, kind of what's going on in the news. We can see that Elon Musk still has quite a bit of influence. So I don't think it's wise to completely abandon X. But I definitely think it's wise to start building up your presence on other social media networks, namely Threads and Blue Sky, as those have kind of filled or tried to fill the void for X. But I think 2025 is going to be a really influential year for X. I think I'll be able to, in a year from now, provide you a little bit better answer for that. But at the moment, I would recommend at least maintaining some presence on X, just in case that they end up turning things around a little bit. Good question, John. And I'm happy if you want to, jump on a call and just have a quick chat about that. More than happy. I'll reach out after this as well. Cool. I'll give folks like another minute or two if they have any questions. But if you don't have any questions, thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for staying till the end. Hopefully we found this valuable, and there will be some resources and additional webinars coming up here shortly. So keep an eye out for those as well. Okay, Rita. Yeah, thank you, Rita. Yeah, thank you for joining. Awesome. Appreciate your participation. Cool. And I see some folks are leaving the webinar room at least. So I think we might be winding down. I'll give everyone like another minute or two. Thanks, John, again for joining. Awesome. I'll give you till 9:37 my time. So about another minute or so to ask any questions, and then we'll go ahead and end the webinar. All right. Well, hey, thanks everyone again for joining. And just to sign off one last time, if you would like to reach out to us at all, or you would like to reach out to me directly, you can reach me at Anthony@Sendible, and be on the lookout for a follow-up email coming in the next couple of days. Awesome. Thanks so much for joining, and you have a great rest of your week.